Welcome to the In My Opinion show with host Ronald Berry Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days weekly. To view, please go to flinttalkradio.com and scroll down to the In My Opinion show to enjoy our complete catalog of shows. The In My Opinion show is also seen on Comcast Cable Television, Channel 17, Michigan, in Flint, Michigan, every Saturday at 6 p.m. and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. The In My Opinion show is seen on Comcast Television, Channel 68 in Detroit, Michigan, 7 days weekly. Consult your community calendar. Today I am delighted to have a very special guest with us in honor of Women's History and because she is just a fantastic individual who has a lot to share. It is a pleasure to introduce you. This is Mrs. Faye Turner Johnson, former educator from the Flint Community Schools and also a longtime director with McCree with Performing Arts. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's exciting to have you here. Well, we're going to jump right into things and get to talk about Faye Turner Johnson, the individual, the person who has done so much. Let's talk about your way up into what you've been doing.
Well, I recently retired from Flint Schools after having taught there for 12 years. I started in 2000 teaching there, and I taught basically math, science, and social studies for nearly 12 years. There was 1 year, where I was privileged to teach language arts. Actually, my major, was language arts when I went back to get my teacher certification.
Okay.
I have a degree in theater, which I got from the University of Michigan Flint, and I got that in 1980. And I've held some various theater positions, one very specifically at McCree Theatre as artistic director from about 1982 through 1985, while I was working as artistic director, directing all their main stage plays for about 3.5 years. I also did the Urban Perspective talk show.
Okay.
I was kind of introduced as a host of the show without any specific training in television at all. Okay. It was an on-the-job training where I got to flounder, in front of lots of people until I really learned how to do the show. But eventually, I became very comfortable at doing it. I liked it, very much. But after I had my son in 1983, December of 1983, directing all the main stage productions as well as taping a talk show, every week, really finally took its toll on me. Mm-hmm. And I think my first clue that maybe I wasn't spending enough time, with my son was when I went to pick him up from the babysitter one day. She had 3 teenage children at the time. Of course, they all hovered around him because he was the baby. And he had begun to call her mom.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Because they called her mom.
Sure.
And so I think he was a little bit confused there, and I wanted to, take that confusion, away from him. Mm-hmm. I remember when he was 6 months old, I took him, to Memphis to visit my parents because I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. He couldn't talk then, but we were gone for a couple of weeks, and when I went back to take him there for the first time, he looked at her and fell into her arms, with tears in his eyes. I said, oh my gosh, he missed her. That was his way of letting me know how much he had missed her.
Okay.
And all of these things, began to play on my mind. And I had this wonderful little boy. And I really wanted to spend more time with him, so I really knew that I needed to make a decision to do something that kept me, gave me more sane hours,
Sure.
because my working hours were supposed to be at, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., but actually I went to work, 1:30 or 2 o'clock, in the afternoon, and sometimes it was after midnight, before I even left the theater. And by the time I picked him up, he was asleep. And so we really didn't get a chance to spend a whole lot of time together. And I felt like it was time for me to do something else.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I did.
Okay.
And I happened to be subbing, while I was trying to figure out, what it is, that I wanted to do. And I was at Beecher Schools, and I ran into the personnel director there, who had told me about the pilot program the University of Michigan was starting. They wanted people who already had college degrees, to become certified, because at the time, there was, I guess, a little bit of a shortage of teachers. And so I entered into the program. It took me a couple of years, become certified, so that I could finally, work a 9 to 5 or, 7 to 3 or whatever job, so that I could spend more time with him when he was at school. Then by the time, he got home, I'd be able to pick him up. And I'd be at home with him to help with homework, to do all the things, that I thought a mom would do, that I had seen my mother do, because my mom never worked when we were growing up. She was always at home with us. And I just kind of felt like I needed to do, that same thing. I could still work, but, be at home with him, when he really needed me, and not be out traipsing around like a gypsy.
You were torn. You were absolutely torn.
Oh, yeah,
being, multitasking, trying to, doing a lot.
Left a big hole in my heart, to have to walk away from the theater, because it really took me such a long time, to finally decide, that that's where I really, really wanted to be. I have a passion for it, and didn't really know that it was theater. I always thought I wanted to be a singer, because when I was a little girl, I'd pick up a microphone. I mean, something that I pretended was a microphone, like a broom or a spoon or anything,
right,
and try to sing. Only my voice never grew into the voice of a singer. So I finally found that, maybe it was acting on stage, or, eventually becoming a director. I think I have a passion for that more so than acting or doing any other aspect of theater. I like to look at the entire picture, and I guess it's my need. My sister tells me it's my need for control, or to control things. You want to be in charge all the time. That's why you like to do that. But I do like to look at the entire picture. I like to know what the stage is going to look like. I like to know, what the costumes are going to be. I like to work with the designers, as well as the actors. So it's been, my life, I think, has been a fun ride.
Yes, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. Now, after moving from Memphis, it seems like you also had a little bit of an experience, perhaps working in a theater, that you may want to, kind of talk about.
Yes, I after I got my theater degree at the University of Michigan here, I moved back to Memphis, and I joined a theater troupe and a writing group, a creative writing group called Play for a Day, and it was the Bill Street troupe, and we travel all throughout the South, presenting plays. I got a chance to go to New Orleans. We did a play at Tulane University. We did Ole Miss. We just hit all the little southern states around. We did plays in Arkansas. It was fun, for about a year. And we also, wrote plays every week. We'd meet every Sunday, and we would have our breakfast, and somebody would be drafted, to write a play. and whoever had written a play, they would read their play to the group. We would do the editing that we need. We'd go into the studio, to the radio station, on Tuesday. We would record it, go back on Wednesday, edit it, and boom, it would play on Sunday, and the cycle continued, for about a year. So it was just a very busy, fun time.
It sounds like
absolutely loved it.
Okay, it sounds like a soap opera, so to speak.
I tried to get a writing group started when I moved back to Flint. I tried to get a writing group started like that. I think we did have a couple of meetings. Not a lot of people were willing to host the breakfast every Sunday morning, and I didn't want to have to do it all the time.
Sure.
And because they had a grant, to present, the plays or present them on the radio in Memphis. I think it worked a lot better.
Sure.
I probably should have started, with trying to seek a grant first instead of diving right in, trying to get people to bring plays, to read. So it didn't quite catch on here, but it was a good experience that I remember. And one day maybe I will try and do it again.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it would be fun. I think we could appreciate that kind of artistic.
I think so. I think so.
Okay. Well, as an educator, you indicated that you worked in the school system here for about 12 years. What were some of your challenges working with the young people? Because as you said, I have this passion for the theater. So, how did you kind of parlay that, if there was a way to parlay that at all?
Well, taking my creative mind,
okay.
what I did was each and every day that I walked into the classroom, it was more of an acting job, even though I wanted to act like the best teacher that I possibly, could be. I enjoyed the children. I loved them. But the thing of it is, I knew that deep down, I wasn't really I guess meant to be a teacher as much as I was a performer. And so I kind of used those performance skills, to make sure that I presented, my very best to them every day.
Okay.
Being, from a family where my mother and my father always insisted, that we become educated. I wanted to make sure that I passed this on, to as many children as I possibly could. I absolutely loved school. I loved learning new things. And one of the things that I missed seeing, and maybe it was just me, I thought everybody loved that, and maybe they didn't. I missed that drive in some of the kids, they didn't love education, they didn't love learning, things, and so I had to figure out a way, to make them, like learning new things. And eventually, I think it did happen.
Okay.
But I had to make them want it because they wanted it, and not because I wanted them, to want it. And I always thought that I should make the classroom a fun place, an animated place, a place where kids felt free to learn, where they wanted to learn. Okay. And I did my best, to make that, such a place.
Okay.
So that I could kind of feel, the hole, that was left from the theater. And every time, that we got a chance, when we had, a few minutes, sometimes I would take some of the social studies material, and maybe I would do a poem for them. Every year, I made sure that during the months of January and February, I would just kind of extend, our Black History Month, into a couple of months, and make sure I talked about Martin Luther King and bring some of his speeches in, so that they could listen to them, so they would know that there was another speech other than I Have a Dream.
Absolutely.
I wanted to make sure that they knew that. And when I had some pictures and some newspaper articles from some of the trips that I had taken, during the South, when Martin Luther King was alive. And when he went to Selma, Alabama, our college that I was going to at the time, took a busload of us, to Selma. And so I had those pictures. I was able to share those things, with them. And that, that was always my hook. That was always my hope.
Okay.
And I just
Okay.
used different little things, you know. I took Russian, you know, when I was in college. And sometimes, you know, I would teach them, you know, some words of Russian, how to greet me, you know, in Russian, how to say thank you, and you know, I use those little things
Okay.
as hooks.
Okay,
You know.
okay. And what was it like when the light came on, when you saw one that finally said, I think I like this, I think I want to learn?
That was very, very gratifying.
Okay.
My very last year of teaching, I had one young lady who, the very first marking period, got nothing but D's and E's. Her mother was just very, very distraught. She kept telling me, you know, my daughter can learn. I said, well, she's just not showing me this right now. But I kept working with her and working with her. By that third marking period, the light finally came on. And she was the most animated, ambitious student. I mean, her hand would just go up. I said, my, what a change.
Wow.
What a change. And then she'd tell me, I'm smart, I said, yes, you are. Yes, you are. But it had to come from her. And when I got that kind of a response from a student, it has made it all worthwhile.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And it did happen. You know, it doesn't happen, you know, and they tell you when you first go in, you're not going to be able to save everybody.
That's right.
You know, but there are certainly, I try to do my best. I try to do my best because these are our kids for the most part, you know, and I did not want them going out into a world where they were unprepared. It is hard enough when we are educated, and I did not want them going out into a world where they were not educated. You know, I cared about whether or not they learned.
Okay.
And sometimes, if it took standing on my head, I stood on my head. But, you know,
Yes.
that I made it fun for me.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if I was bored, they would also be bored.
Okay.
You know, and you can't teach if you're bored. So I never sat down. I was always up and about all the time. You know.
Okay.
And sometimes when I would see them pretending they were Mrs. Johnson, would always be, you know, flinging their hands about and moving and being real animated because that's how I taught, you know.
Right.
And so,
So that was helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I think, you know, having a background, you know, in the arts helps to lend yourself to almost anything, you know, that you want to do.
Okay.
It certainly helps with your communication skills all the time, whether it's written or oral communication. You know, you can do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, being trained in theater, you know, I was accustomed to going and, you know, speaking before people, so I had no problem, you know, with that.
Okay.
So it helps. I would recommend that everybody, you know, get a degree in theater. It'll help you do anything that you want to do.
Say this whole world is a stage.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, that is incredible. Well, I am so excited, you know, for you because it just seems like you've had, you know, a varied experience and you've been able to kind of blend the two of them, and that takes, you know, some real savvy. So, you know, I really appreciate that. Well, tell me about some of the accomplishments that you've done in the theater. You mentioned, of course, you know, the grind that you were on as far as, you know, working consistently with the various plays. How are they recognized and how are they received by the community?
I think, for the most part, because I have such a penchant for perfection, that I helped, when I first went there, I think it helped McCree to at least advance, you know, another step or two.
Okay.
I knew that having gone to the University of Michigan and getting a degree in theater, I knew that there were certain things, you know, that were missing in our community theater, you know, that could only make it better if we would just add, you know, some of those things. If we did the research and make sure that we had the right props, you know, for all the stage plays, because I had, you know, seen some productions where, you know, a banana was used as a gun, you know, and it was very severely criticized as we don't have to do that, you know, we can do better. And so I tried to bring as much professionalism, into that community theater setting as I possibly could. And there was one actress, I remember one time, saying to me, well, it's just a play.
Oh, really?
I guess I was just so passionate about everything, that I did. And I guess I seemed like probably, I don't know what I seemed like to people, but I just wanted everything to be right.
Yeah.
I wanted the sets to be right. I wanted the costumes to be right. I wanted the actors, to be disciplined. And I wanted, our presentations, to be met with the same kind of enthusiasm as every other, theater venue in Flint or in surrounding areas. I knew that we could do that if we just put the effort into it.
Right.
And so I go into, each production, that I do with a vision, and very anxious and excited to communicate this vision to all of my designers, as well as the actors. And I guess I drive and push and drive and drive and
so
push.
Do they think you're a perfectionist, maybe?
I think maybe. But I think in the long run, it brings about a certain amount of pride, because we can take the resources, that we have, in, whatever theater setting, and make it as professional as we possibly can be. All we have to do is make a commitment, to do that, and it can be done. I just truly believe if you commit yourself to something, commit 100%, commit 100%, and you can get it done. And you can get it done as well as anybody else can do it. And so I have, received, great reviews for the most part.
Okay.
A few that, well, actually two, that I'm not the most proud of. But, every once in a while, you fall down, but you pick yourself up and you just get right back into the race. But the thing that I think more than even the reviews is that the people with whom I work, I can get them to do things that they didn't think that they could do, and that's what I'm proud of. I can get people to do their best.
Okay.
I can motivate them somehow.
Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, because I've had an opportunity to see some of the productions, and I certainly appreciate the quality, the intensity, because there were a couple that were they weren't comedies. They were pretty intense roles that people were involved in, and and you were the director.
Well, I happened to come back to the theater after some absence of about 25 or 26 years into an amazing, pool of talent. There's so many people out there, I guess, who are just hungry, to do some dramas, because I guess there had just been no place, for them to do them for a while. And some people with whom I'd worked before, some years ago, and I was glad to work with again, and then some new people. But it's just an amazing amount of talent, an amazing desire, There are some people who love to do musicals, and the musicals are very good. I'm a person, who I like to do the dramas and the comedies, because I have rarely found a musical that I think, that's really, really good enough, that I really, really want to do. Okay. Either the book is very good and the songs are just okay, or the songs are fantastic and the book is just so-so.
Okay. Okay.
But there are some people, who love that. I just don't. But, that's why we have a variety of plays. We have a variety of directors. Different people like to do different things,
Okay. All right, well, you seem to have found your niche and you're comfortable with that, and I think that is, the driving force behind making sure that the productions come out the way that they do. And I am, like I said, that is just a phenomenal place to be in. And so now that you have retired from the education piece, what are your future goals in terms of the theater? Where do you see yourself?
Well, one of my desires is to be able to work with my son, before I completely retire. He is in Los Angeles now. Lives in West Hollywood, California.
Okay.
He's a struggling actor now, but he did his undergrad study at Western Michigan, and he was in several awesome plays there. When I went to see him perform, I was just awed, by his talent. He hasn't really seen me do anything, since he was a very little boy. And all these years he'd go, "Mom, when are you going to do theater again? Mom, when are you going to do theater again? Mom, when are you going to do theater again?" So he was extremely happy, last year when I told him that I was going to direct the piano lesson. We thought we were going to be able to get him to come here at least for a weekend and do a guest appearance, but it just didn't work out that way.
Okay.
Both of us, he's been in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That happened to be the first play he saw on Broadway, first play I saw on Broadway.
Wow.
So we have that connection. And I'm hoping that eventually maybe we'll be able to do somewhere, some way, we'll be able to do, that show together. But I really want to work with him in some capacity. So what we're talking about now, I'm writing, a little short screenplay that maybe he can film and put up on YouTube. And so maybe, even though we are still distant from one another, we can still work. But we're collaborating on subject matter. I write something that I think is fantastic. I shoot it off to him, and he said, "Well,
I don't know." But that is so exciting to just envision mother and son working together, and obviously this was something that was built into him. So at this point, I am so excited about talking with you about this, but I'm going to have to bring this to an end. So I will say to you, it was a pleasure to have you on the show, and we're going to have you come back and tell us more about your
I enjoyed it.
Okay. So in the future, I would just like to say I thank Faye Turner Johnson for telling her story and in recognition of women's history. And I would like to say to our viewers worldwide that you must continue to stay focused.